Good morning and welcome to Explore Within Coaching. I'm Oceana. Today is part 3 of setting healthy boundaries, and that's having the conversation. It's important that once you know what your limits and your boundaries need to be, that you are able to speak to or articulate to the other party what the boundaries are going to be. So the first thing that's important to have when you are learning to set new boundaries is a support system. And that can be an online group, it can be people that are in your life that are supportive of the boundaries that you're setting. But having that support will help you feel more confident and stronger when you're setting your boundaries. The second thing to have in place is, or not in place, but the second thing to do before having the conversation is to vent any strong emotions that are coming up for you. And this is a step you might have to do more than one time, again and again and again. The more you're able to vent out any kind of strong emotions prior to sitting down and setting the boundary with the individual, the less likely it is that you will become emotionally charged while you're in the conversation because you'll already have dispelled all of that emotion. And so it'll be easier for you to remain calm while you're setting this boundary. The third thing is important thing to know when setting the clear boundary and having the conversation is that you need to be clear and direct in your language. If you start making excuses or talking around the issue, you're actually showing that you don't believe the boundary that you're setting. And so it's an invitation to that person who's already infringed on your boundaries to continue to infringe upon it. So it's really important that you are clear as to what the boundary is. I do not want you to call me past 9 p.m. Very clear. I'm kind of tired and I need to get my sleep. And, if you could maybe not call me after 9 p.m., that'd be great. Not very clear. It's still an open invitation to infringe on the boundary. So again, clear and direct or communication or language in order to set the boundary with the person. The next thing is you have to remember you don't need to defend or debate your boundary that you're setting. You're doing this for you, for your health, for your benefit. When we start debating it or defending why we're setting a boundary, we're actually saying we don't believe it. So it's important that we go back to venting strong emotions and getting out all the defenses we might have about setting this boundary and making sure that we're firm, we're direct, but we're also gracious. And I don't mean thank you. I mean polite, sincere, and given the boundary with love. Sorry, my eyes are a little weepy today. So next, you want to back your boundary up with action. I have a little bit of a story with this one. My dad at one time, so he had a heart attack and there were lots of health things that were happening. And it hurt me greatly to watch him kill himself slowly is how I viewed it. And one day I had driven about an hour and a half out to his place. And I had already had a conversation with him and told him that it bothered me that, he was still drinking or smoking or eating things that weren't healthy for him and not making choices that were good for him, and that it hurt me to watch him hurting himself. And so I had shown up this day and I was having coffee with him and he pulled out Tia Maria, which is a liqueur that goes into coffee. And I reminded him that I actually didn't want to watch him drinking. And of course, he tried to brush that off and took a sip of his coffee. And I stood up and I walked over to him. I gave him a hug and I said, I love you. I said, but I'm not going to sit here and watch you kill yourself. And I walked away. And as I was walking down the hallway to leave, he's like, get back here. Fine, I won't drink the tea. Like, he heard me, and because I was willing to stand behind the boundary that I had set, he was willing to make a change in his actions. Never again did my father have alcohol in front of me. I don't know if he continued drinking or not. It was really not important. What was important is that I set the boundary that I wasn't comfortable with him doing it in front of me, and he respected the boundary. I was willing to back up my boundary with my actions. This one is the most important, and it's be gentle with yourself. We are going to make mistakes when we are setting boundaries, especially when we're new at it. It is going to be easy to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's easy to backslide. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really easy for us to backslide and be caught back up in the lack of boundary before we even know it's happened. And so I encourage you to just be gentle with yourself. It's like learning to ride that bike. It's going to take practice and it's going to take time. So just very quickly, I'm going to read off again what the 6 steps are so that you can write it down if you'd like to. The first one is have a support system in place. Second, you're going to want to vent any strong emotions that you have. You're going to want to use simple and direct language while you're setting the boundary. You do not need to defend or to debate the boundary. Just remember to be firm, be direct, and be gracious. Number 5, you want to back your boundary up with your actions. And number 6, you want to be gentle with yourself. Now, there's something called an internal shield, and this is something that we can do to see if a person's reaction to our boundaries is about us or about them. And this is really important because oftentimes when we're just starting to set those boundaries, we are on really shaky legs ourselves. And it can be really easy to take on somebody else's response to the boundary as our own personal issue. And it's not always that. So when you get a little bit of pushback on your boundary, the first thing to do is to check in with yourself and ask yourself, how much of about this is really about me? And it's okay if some of it is about you, and it's okay if none of it's about you. But just check in, because you're responsible for the parts that are about you. So if you've not been clear in your boundary and the person is still infringing on it, then that's about you. You need to get clear as to what you require in order to be happy, healthy, and free. The next one is how much about this is about the person, the one who's having the response. And let them be responsible for their own crap. You don't need to take that on. You got your own stuff. So again, ask yourself, if somebody is responding quite negatively to what you have said, how much is it about them? Is it simply that you are asking them to make a change that they are not comfortable making? Is that change going to be more beneficial for you and your mental health and your mental well-being? Well, then that's on them, and stick with your boundary. And lastly, what, if anything, do you need to change in order to remain in your personal power or to stand up for yourself? If there's nothing, then leave it. So this would go back to the first one with how much of this is about me. If none of it is about you, then you are in your personal power and you don't need to change a thing. If you realize you're not in your, if it is about you and that you've not set the boundary clearly enough for it to be followed and respected, then what do you need to do to be able to remain in your personal power or to stand up for yourself? And again, if it's about them, let it be about them. Don't take that energy on. So the 3 questions of an internal check-in is how much of this is about me, how much is about the other person, and what do I need to do in order to remain in my personal power or to stand up for myself? So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about setting boundaries. This is a class that I host, and if it's something you're interested in, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it or to work with you on setting one-on-one boundaries as well. In the meantime, Stay safe, be good to one another, and love yourself a little more each day.